Here's the truth. They lied to you. Everything you were told about how to handle your emotions, it's dead wrong. We've all been taught to man up, to hold it in, to push through without actually acknowledging what's really going on inside. It's like the world wants us to believe that emotions are the enemy, that feeling anything makes you weak. But here's the thing, avoiding your emotions, man, that's what's actually making you weak. I used to buy into this too. I thought keeping my feelings to myself was the best way to stay in control. No one had to see what I was dealing with inside, so I kept it all bottled up. But the more I shut down my emotions, the more disconnected I felt from myself, from the people around me, and from life itself. And that's why we're here. Because real strength isn't about how well you can shove your emotions down or wear a mask of toughness. But real strength is knowing your emotions, understanding them, and using them to your advantage. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in. See, it's all about mastering what's going on inside so that you can live and lead with authenticity without losing your cool. Today, we're breaking down emotional intelligence and why it's the key to unlocking your real power as a man. So let's get into it. All right, so what exactly is emotional intelligence? Well, it's not just some buzzword, but it's the secret sauce to actually mastering yourself. Emotional intelligence is about being aware of your emotions, understanding where they're coming from, and learning how to control your reactions so your emotions aren't running the show. Think about it. How many times have you reacted out of pure emotion, whether it's anger, frustration, or anxiety, and then regretted it later? Emotional intelligence is like your internal compass. Instead of letting your emotions hijack you, it helps you recognize what's actually happening, why it's happening, and it gives you the space to respond in a way that serves you, not screws you. And it's not just about knowing your own emotions. See, when you get good at this, you start to pick up on what other people are feeling too. You can walk into a room and just feel the energy. You know when someone's pissed off, when they're stressed, or when they're hiding something, because you're tuned in. And that's the real game changer in relationships. Whether it's with your partner, your friends, or even at work. When you understand where someone else is emotionally, you can connect with them on a much deeper level. Let me give you a quick example. Have you ever been in a situation where someone is clearly upset, but they're not saying it? You can feel it, right? That's emotional intelligence. It's being able to read the emotional undercurrent that's always there, but rarely spoken about. It's like having a sixth sense that allows you to navigate interactions without stepping on landmines. Now, why does this matter? Well, because without emotional intelligence, you're just reacting to life, running on autopilot. But when you have emotional intelligence, you start making decisions from a place of clarity. Your relationships get deeper. Your communication, it gets clearer. And you stop being a slave to your emotions. You're in control. See, that's the power of emotional intelligence. All right, now let's talk about something most of us avoid like the plague. It's vulnerability. Yeah, that word probably makes you cringe, right? For most of us, we've been taught that being vulnerable means being weak, exposed, or even worse, powerless. But here's the crazy thing. Vulnerability is actually where your real power comes from. Think about it. When you're being vulnerable, you're not hiding behind some false version of yourself. You're real, you're raw, and you're showing up as you. Man, and that takes guts. Way more guts than pretending everything's fine when it's not. Vulnerability doesn't mean spilling your guts to everyone about everything. It's about letting the people who matter know the real you, not just the I've got it all figured out version. And here's the kicker, right? It's in those moments of vulnerability that real connection happens. When you stop pretending, you give other permissions to do the same. And that's where trust is built. That's where relationships go deep. See, I used to think I had to keep it all together, never let anyone see me sweat. But when I finally started being honest about what I was feeling, whether it was fear, doubt, or straight up confusion, everything shifted. My relationships, they got stronger and I felt more connected, not just to the people around me, but to myself as well. Now here's the deal. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. It's having the courage to be seen exactly as you are. And yet, I agree, that can feel uncomfortable at first. But once you step into it, you'll see how powerful it really is. When you embrace vulnerability, you stop living in fear of judgment or rejection, and you start living authentically. All right, so now you get it. Emotional intelligence is the tool that helps you understand and control your emotions, and vulnerability is where your true strength lies. But here's the kicker. These two things, they're not separate. They work together, and that's where the magic happens. See, when you start to tap into emotional intelligence, it makes vulnerability possible. Think about it. When you can recognize your emotions, understand where they're coming from, and not let them own you, it becomes easy to show up vulnerably. You're not just reacting out of fear or anger anymore. You're aware of what's actually going on inside, and that awareness, it gives you the courage to be open with the people around you. See, it's like this. Emotional intelligence is the awareness, and vulnerability is the action. One helps you understand what's happening inside, and the other lets you express it in a way that deepens your connection with others. And trust me, when you start putting both into practice, everything shifts. Your relationships, your confidence, your ability to lead and communicate, it's a whole new level. So let's say you're in a tough conversation with someone close to you. Without emotional intelligence, you might get defensive or shut down because you're not fully aware of your own triggers. But with it, you recognize that maybe what you're feeling isn't anger, it's hurt. And instead of reacting, you open up and say, hey, this is hard for me, but I need you to know where I'm coming from. That's vulnerability in action. And guess what? Instead of having a fight, now you're having a real conversation, one that builds trust and understanding. So when you combine emotional intelligence and vulnerability, you're no longer playing small. You're showing up as your authentic self, in control of your emotions, but open enough to connect deeply with others. And that's where the true power lies. So now that we've covered emotional intelligence and vulnerability and how they work together, let's take it a step further and put it into practice. Because understanding this stuff, it's one thing, but applying it, that's where the real transformation happens. So here's a quick exercise to help you to start tapping into both. I want you to take a moment and think back to a situation where you felt a strong emotion. Maybe it was frustration, anger, or even anxiety. Whatever it was, just sit with it for a second. Now ask yourself, did you recognize what you were feeling in the moment? Did you understand why you were feeling it? And most importantly, did you allow yourself to express it in a way that was real and honest? See, this isn't about beating yourself up if you didn't handle it perfectly. It's about awareness. Maybe you reacted without thinking, or maybe completely shut down. That's okay. The point is to start recognizing how you respond to emotions and whether you let vulnerability come through. Now here's your challenge for this week. The next time you feel yourself getting triggered, whether it's anger, sadness, or stress, stop and recognize it. Don't suppress it, and don't just react. Instead, ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now? Once you've got that awareness, use it. Share it with someone close to you. Be real about what you're experiencing in that moment. That's where vulnerability comes in. And yeah, it might feel comfortable, but that's how you grow. The more practice you do with this, the more you'll see the benefits. Your relationships will deepen, your communication will improve, and you'll feel way more in control of your emotions. So give it a shot. Take small steps. You don't need to open up about everything all at once, but start with just being honest about where you're at. So now you've got the tools and you're ready to start practicing. Let's talk about what actually happens when you make emotional intelligence and vulnerability part of your life. Because trust me, this isn't just about feeling good. It's about transforming the way you live and the way you connect. So first off, your relationships, they're gonna level up. Whether it's with your partner, your family, your friends, when you can show up emotionally intelligent and vulnerable, you're creating space for connection. People aren't just seeing the surface level you. They're seeing the real you, and that builds trust, respect, and deeper bonds. Suddenly, conversations go from surface level small talk to deep, meaningful exchanges that leave you both feeling more understood. And it's not just about relationships either. See, emotional intelligence helps you handle stress and conflict in a completely different way. Instead of blowing up or shutting down when things get intense, you've got the awareness and the tools to manage the situation. You respond instead of react. You stay calm under pressure because you know what's going on inside and you know how to handle it. But the biggest shift, it's in how you see and feel about yourself. When you're living with emotional intelligence and vulnerability, you're living authentically. There's no need to put on a mask or pretend to be something that you're not. You're grounded in who you are and you're not afraid to show it. And that's the kind of confidence that doesn't fade. It's the kind of confidence that comes from within. So yeah, practicing this stuff changes everything. Your relationships, communication, your peace of mind, your sense of self. This isn't some feel-good fluff. This is the path to living a life that's real and connected. All right, so that's it for today. Emotional intelligence and vulnerability. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about tapping into the real you. It's about getting in tune with what's happening inside and having the courage to express it. And that's where the power is. Now remember, this stuff doesn't happen overnight. It's a process and you're gonna get better at it with time. See, the more you practice recognizing your emotions, the more you lean into vulnerability, the more connected you're going to feel. Not just to yourself, but others as well. Now next week, we're going to take things even deeper. We'll be diving into how to confront and redefine masculinity on your own terms. Because if you're living by someone else's definition of what it means to be a man, you're not living authentically. If you're feeling this content, go ahead, drop a comment, and let me know how emotional intelligence and vulnerability are showing up in your life. And if this resonated with you, I'd really love it if you could hit that subscribe button. So let's keep this conversation going and build a community of men committed to living with purpose and authenticity. I'll see you next week.